He fell to his knees and wept, not for himself, but for the world. The city he once knew lay in ruins, the temple of the Most High destroyed, the sacred flame extinguished, the chosen people scattered, broken by conquest, starved by siege, and silenced by exile. In that moment of despair, Ezra looked to the heavens and demanded an answer. Why had God allowed this? Why did the wicked triumph while the righteous suffered? And from that cry, a revelation began, one so powerful that it would be hidden from the eyes of the masses for centuries. From which country are you watching this video? Subscribe if you believe that sacred knowledge should never be buried. Because what you are about to hear is not taught in Sunday schools, not preached in temples, and not quoted in textbooks. It has been locked away in forgotten scrolls, waiting for those bold enough to ask the forbidden questions. Ezra is known to many as a scribe, a priest, a restorer of the law after the Babylonian exile. That is the safe version, the one that appears in canon. But dig deeper, and you find a man transformed not only by loss, but by visions that cross the veil between heaven and earth. In the texts we now call 2 Esdras, also known as 4 Ezra, Ezra is no longer just a scribe. He becomes something far more dangerous, a prophet of secrets. A man chosen to receive knowledge so piercing, it challenges the very foundations of religious authority. He does not simply ask for restoration. He asks why the world is ruled by cruelty. He pleads to understand divine justice. And in return, the heavens answer not with comfort, but with truths too immense for the unprepared. The context is crucial. Jerusalem is in ruins. The first temple has fallen. The people of Israel have been carried away into Babylon. Ezra is among the survivors, one of the learned few who remembers the sacred texts. And then, according to the ancient account, a voice from the Lord comes to him. It tells him to prepare for something extraordinary. He is to separate himself for 40 days, to fast, to purify, and to receive visions. What follows is not just prophecy, it is a dialogue between a man and the divine. And the answers he receives? They are not safe. They are not easy. They are explosive. It begins with a question. Why does the Most High allow evil to prosper? Why is there injustice if God is just? Ezra presses this question over and over. And the angel Uriel is sent to him not to silence him, but to engage him. What follows are dialogues that shake the foundation of human understanding. Ezra is told that this world is like a narrow path, dangerous and difficult, bordered by fire and water. Few will pass through it. Most will fall. The suffering, the corruption, the silence of heaven. It is all part of a greater mystery, one that cannot be simplified for easy answers. Ezra is not comforted. He is changed. But the greatest shock is yet to come. In a passage too often ignored, Ezra is told that he will receive the divine books once again. The law, the prophets, the sacred writings, all must be rewritten. And so, under divine instruction, he gathers 5 scribes. They bring tablets and ink. And for 40 days, Ezra speaks. Day and night, his mouth utters the sacred words. The scribes write without rest. And when it is over, 94 books have been produced. 94. But here is the mystery. Only 24 of them were to be made public. These were the scriptures that all could read. But the other 70 were different. They were not for everyone. They were to be kept hidden, reserved for the wise, the initiated, the seekers of deeper truth. Why 70? What did they contain? What kind of knowledge could be so dangerous that even believers were not trusted to receive it? Was it prophecy? Was it the true story of angels and fallen beings? Was it the real structure of the divine realm? Or did these books contain instructions on the coming end of the world? Scholars have speculated. Mystics have searched. But the books remain hidden, or perhaps destroyed, or locked away in vaults. Their very absence fuels the mystery. And their suppression raises a chilling question: who decided what humanity could know? And what did they fear we might do with that knowledge? It is the story of how power controls truth, how revelation can be filtered, how even the words of a man chosen by God can be deemed too dangerous for the world to read. And if that could happen to Ezra, how many other prophets were silenced? How many visions were sealed away? How many truths have we never heard? And so we ask again, not whether Ezra was real, but why his full story was not allowed to be. Stay with us, because the deeper we go into these hidden visions, the more we realize something powerful was buried here. And it is time to unearth it. He came not with thunder or flame, but with answers too heavy for ordinary minds to bear. The angel, Uriel, his name meaning light of God, was not sent merely to comfort Ezra, but to challenge him. When Ezra cried out against injustice, when he questioned why the righteous were crushed underfoot while the wicked walked in glory, it was Uriel who descended. Not with soft words or hollow platitudes, but with riddles, visions, truths that bent the limits of human reason. This was no one-sided prophecy. It was a sacred debate, a confrontation between a broken man and the unseen force behind creation. What was unfolding here was not just a message from heaven, it was a test. Would Ezra dare to ask what others feared to speak aloud? Would he endure the burden of knowledge that had shattered greater minds? Ezra asked, again and again, why evil seemed to win. Why the Most High, who formed the heavens and breathed life into Adam, would remain silent as children starved, as nations fell, as the temple was desecrated. He spoke not as a skeptic, but as one who had tasted the sacred and could not reconcile it with the suffering all around him. Uriel's replies were enigmatic. He told Ezra that humanity's mind was like the ocean in a clay pot, too limited to hold the vast truths of the cosmos. That mortals, who fear shadows and stumble in the dark, cannot comprehend the fullness of divine justice. But even so, he did not turn Ezra away. Instead, he unfolded layer after layer of insight. He spoke of a coming judgment, of souls weighed and measured, of rewards beyond imagining, and punishments beyond fear. He spoke of a world not as it is, but as it will be purified, restored, and reordered by the hand of the Creator. These were no gentle teachings. They were warnings. Uriel described a coming time when the veil would be lifted and all things revealed. The righteous, though they suffer now, would rise like the sun, adorned in immortal glory. The wicked, whose laughter echoes in the streets, would be silenced forever. Ezra, shaken but unyielding, demanded more. What is the purpose of pain? Why are we born only to die? To strive only to fail? And Uriel, in words laced with divine paradox, explained that the journey itself is the crucible of the soul, that we are not made to be comfortable, but to be tested. The fire does not come to destroy, but to purify. And only those who walk through the flames with faith will enter the next world. But it was the visions that came next that truly unsettled the heavens. Ezra was shown a colossal eagle rising from the sea, its wings vast, its heads many, its voice arrogant and defiant. It ruled the world. It consumed and trampled. It exalted itself above the stars. This was no ordinary eagle. It was a symbol, an empire, an embodiment of earthly power unchecked by conscience or covenant. Throughout history, this eagle has been interpreted as Rome, whose legions crushed nations and whose standards bore the image of the very creature Ezra described. But it is not only Rome. The eagle is every empire that exalts itself above God, every kingdom that forgets justice, every government that feeds on the weak. As Ezra watched, this eagle began to devour its own wings, turn against its own heads, and grow mad with power. Its arrogance led it to proclaim that none could oppose it. And then from the forest came a roaring lion, majestic, divine, unstoppable. The lion rebuked the eagle, exposed its sins, and tore it apart without mercy. This was the justice Ezra had longed for. But it was not man who brought it, it was the direct hand of the Most High. The eagle was not just a political warning. It was a theological one. Human power, no matter how vast, is temporary. All empires built on blood will be answered for, and the day of reckoning, though delayed, is never canceled. The vision continued, shifting to a woman dressed in black. She sat alone, mourning, wrapped in sackcloth, crying over the loss of her only son. Ezra, moved with compassion, approached to ask her why she wept. Her pain was deep, her sorrow endless. She told him her son was taken in the prime of his life, and that her joy had turned to ash. She was not just a grieving mother, she was the personification of Zion, the people of God, the fallen Jerusalem. But then, in an instant, the mourning woman transformed. Her face shone like the sun. Her clothes turned to radiant light. She grew, rising into the sky, becoming something far more than human. She became a great city, New Jerusalem, descending not from men, but from heaven itself. This vision speaks volumes. It is the cycle of grief and glory. A people broken, yet destined to rise. A city destroyed, yet promised eternal restoration. But this is not the New Jerusalem spoken of in sanitized sermons. This is a city born of suffering, shaped by divine fire, carried in the womb of mourning. And it is not made by hands. It is not the product of armies or builders. It is a creation of heaven, brought forth only when the appointed time comes. The woman's transformation is a message to all who grieve. Your mourning is not the end. It is the beginning of something holy. This imagery would later echo in other texts, Revelation, the Dead Sea Scrolls, and mystical writings across ages. But here, in Ezra's vision, it appears raw and unfiltered. A holy city rising from the ashes of despair. The idea that mourning is not weakness, but prophecy. That those who cry for the fallen may one day inherit glory beyond comprehension. And yet, once again, this was deemed too much for general reading. Too vivid. Too revolutionary. A people taught to obey would not be encouraged to dream of transformation that bypasses earthly rulers. A vision where heaven bypasses kings and restores the broken directly? That was dangerous. Ezra's visions were more than poetry. They were maps, cosmic, moral, prophetic. Maps that revealed the hidden structure of history, the rise and fall of empires, the weeping of mothers, and the restoration of a kingdom not made with hands. The presence of Uriel, the monstrous eagle, the lion of judgment, the woman-turned city, none of this was accidental. It was a tapestry of symbols, each thread woven with divine intention. And for centuries, it remained in the shadows. So we must ask, why were these chapters hidden from public scripture? Why were they not included in the Bibles handed to the masses? Because they threatened the illusion of control. They revealed a God who speaks outside of official channels, a kingdom that rises from ashes, a judgment that ignores earthly titles. These were not safe doctrines. They were sparks that could ignite revolutions not just political, but spiritual. Ezra was never just a scribe. He was a vessel of forbidden fire. And the words he received continue to burn, even now. What would happen if we let them speak again? Not filtered, not trimmed, but whole? What kind of world would emerge if people once again believed that sorrow can give birth to glory, that empires fall but justice rises, that the divine speaks to those who weep? This is only the beginning. More visions wait. More secrets remain sealed. But now that the silence has been broken, will you dare to keep listening? Or will you turn back, like those before, afraid of what the truth might demand? The voice of Ezra still echoes, and the angel is still waiting. There is a road. It stretches out before you, narrow, treacherous, with fire raging on one side and deep water on the other. You can see the light at the end, a glorious city shining like crystal. But to reach it, you must walk the path alone, one foot in front of the other, with no space to turn, no margin for error, no room to bring others with you. This is not a metaphor dreamed up by philosophers. This is the parable given to Ezra by the angel Uriel, an image that still haunts the soul because it strips away every illusion of comfort, of safety, of crowd-led righteousness. The way to salvation is not wide, not welcoming, not easy. It is narrow. It is hard. And few find it. Uriel described this path as the only way to reach the promise of the Most High. A kingdom beyond pain. A reward beyond imagination. But the test to reach it would not be passed by mere belief, nor by association with a tribe or a nation. It would require endurance, courage, purity of purpose, and most of all, a willingness to suffer, to walk in fire, to press on, even when the world calls you mad for doing so. This vision demolishes the soft version of faith where forgiveness is easy, where everyone arrives at the end, no matter how they live. No. In Ezra's revelation, salvation is not automatic. It is won through a lifetime of refinement. But Uriel did not stop there. He went on to describe what happens after death. For 7 days, the soul of the righteous is guided through realms of glory, welcomed by the angels, surrounded by the fragrance of paradise. Joy increases day by day as the soul draws nearer to its eternal home. But the fate of the wicked is reversed. Their soul is shown what they have lost. Day after day, their torment grows not merely from pain, but from regret, from the crushing awareness that they had the chance, and they let it slip away. This teaching, so specific, so vivid, is almost absent from the sanitized texts of mainstream religion. And yet, it is here in Ezra's writings, raw and detailed. The path is real. The judgment is final. There is no bargaining after death, no second chance. Only the record of your life, echoing into eternity. Not just any man, but one who stands atop Mount Zion, surrounded by a vast multitude. They are singing, rejoicing, holding palm branches, symbols of victory and peace. This man is tall, majestic, crowned by angels. He moves among the multitude, placing crowns on their heads, blessing them, calling them his own. Ezra, overwhelmed by the beauty of the vision, asks, "Who is this man?" And the angel tells him, "This is the Son of God, whom they have confessed in the world." And suddenly, the entire vision changes. Because this is not just about judgment anymore, it is about reward, about recognition, about the return of one who leads the faithful to glory. This figure, crowned and radiant, is never named explicitly. But the language used, the setting, the symbolism many throughout history have seen in this a vision of the Messiah. Some interpret it as a reference to the future king promised to Israel. Others, as a veiled glimpse of Jesus of Nazareth. But the text does not name him. And that silence is thunderous, because it opens the door to deeper reflection. Who is this Son of God? Why is he crowning the righteous? What does it mean to confess him in the world? This is no ordinary prophet. This is no angel, This is a figure who stands at the very center of divine restoration. And yet, his identity remains sealed, inviting each generation to look, to wonder, to search. Ezra is stunned. He falls to his face, not in fear, but in awe, because he sees not just a vision of the end, but a vision of the beginning. A kingdom where those who endured the narrow path are rewarded not just with safety, but with honor. Where the world is turned upside down, the poor are exalted, the meek are glorified, the faithful are crowned by the very one they served. This is not simply heaven. It is justice fulfilled, love rewarded, suffering transformed into majesty. But what happened to these visions? Why are they not preached from every pulpit, studied in every seminary, read aloud in every home? Why were they hidden? The answer is as unsettling as the visions themselves. These writings were too powerful, too raw, too uncompromising. They spoke of judgment that could not be bought off, of glory that belonged not to priests or kings, but to the poor and the faithful. They tore down the structures of man and lifted up the voice of the ordinary believer. They spoke directly from God to the people, with no institution standing in between, and so they were suppressed. Not destroyed, but buried. Preserved in apocryphal collections, stored in monastic libraries, translated only in whispers. The canon was shaped not only by inspiration, but by politics, by power, by what leaders believed people could handle. And the full version of Ezra? It was judged to be too much, too honest about the cost of holiness, too vivid about the fate of the wicked, too revolutionary in its portrait of divine justice. But now, the silence is breaking. These texts are being read again, studied, shared, not as relics of a forgotten religion, but as fire in our own time. Because the questions Ezra asked are still the questions we ask today. Why do the innocent suffer? Why does justice seem delayed? What happens when we die? Will the world ever be made right? Ezra shows us that these questions are not signs of weak faith. They are the very pathway to revelation. He was not punished for asking. He was rewarded. He was shown the architecture of the end times, the secrets of the soul, the destiny of nations, and most of all, the heart of a God who hears, who sees, who acts, even when all seems lost. The final words of Ezra's hidden books are not of fear, but of promise. That though this world is broken, it will be healed. That though we walk through fire, it is not the end. That though the righteous are few, they are never forgotten. And that one day, the Son of God will crown those who stood firm. So ask yourself now, what would you do if the knowledge of the end was placed in your hands? If the map to eternity was opened before you, with the ink still fresh, would you hide it? Or would you follow it no matter the cost? Because the vision of Ezra has returned, and it is not silent anymore. You have heard it. You cannot unhear it. Now you must decide what to do with it. The road is still narrow. The fire still burns. The water still roars. But the city at the end is real, and its gates are still open. Will you walk the path? And if you will, then let the words of Ezra guide your steps. Let the lost book speak again, and never forget some truths were never meant to be hidden forever. They were only waiting for you to seek them.